Hey everybody, welcome back. I finally got some time to do the studio side of this and put the whole thing together, but today we are taking a look at the Black Label Mantis Bipod for the Desert Tech MDRX. Guys, as always, go down below, like, subscribe, share, drop a comment. I, of course, as always, have my Buy Me a Coffee link in the description, and let's get into it. So, without further ado, let's jump into this bad boy. So, Black Label has done the bipod integrated into the handguard for a while. They actually got together with Desert Tech on this and created this lovely handguard, as they've done with the other ones, as a direct fit and a direct replacement for the stock MDRX handguard. So, initial comparison side by side, and obviously it does have a bipod, but the size is just about the same. You do pick up just a little bit more pick rail over, or at least on the top, over the stock handguard. Obviously you're stepping up to an aluminum handguard instead of a polymer handguard, but the mounting system is absolutely identical. You still have 3 M-lock slots on the bottom, just like you do with that factory handguard. And the only thing you end up giving up for the functionality of the bipod is we go from 3 M-lock slots on either side down to just a single M-lock slot on either side, left hand and right hand side. The one thing that we do pick up over the OE handguard, with the OE handguard you have essentially one sling attachment point there that you could use a hook style on, and that's it. Whereas the Black Label does give you the QD slot on both sides. Obviously this being a ambidextrous rifle, left or right hand, they do give you slots on both sides, and that was a very well thought out feature by them. So obviously we have a handguard and a bipod all in one. How well does it work? Well, with the very short size of the MDRX handguard, or I should say MDR as well, trying to mount something like a traditional an Atlas bipod or something, by the time you add your clamp and your rail section and everything else, you have a big old honking mass underneath the front of the rifle, and you end up with no good place to put your hand. So with the Mantis handguard, Black Label has solved that idea. So let me roll this thing up and we will look at deployment. So the legs are locked into place by this lock at the top here, and then the swivel adjustment or the swivel tension is adjusted by this screw here at the top. Obviously we talked about our pick rail down the top, and this is the control unit for my Cloud Defensive Rain up there. And they do give you a little bit more room over the OE handguard to adjust the gas system on it. So if you like using an Allen wrench or even the tip of a 5.56 round, this enlarged adjustment slot does make that easier to get to. So definitely nice, definitely makes ownership a little bit easier. Deployment's pretty simple. Reach up, slide the legs down, they lock into place. And then you are able, with these 2 adjusters here, to extend the bottom part of the legs. So the upper part of the leg, we do have an aluminum leg, and as you can see here, the we'll call it the male part, the second level of extension, if you will, is a carbon fiber, and it does have a rubber tip, kind of shaped like a cleat, kind of not. but it gets you a decent amount of grab on hard surfaces like bench rest shooting, which is what we did. But it'll also dig in as well on soft dirt or grass or something like that, which is where a bipod really does shine. Downside to this bipod, and part of this is just the overall design of the MDR. It's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, it just is what it is. But because this rifle is so short, if you don't have a magazine in and you try to deploy the bipod without extending the legs, it doesn't quite hold up, it flops around. So you have to take it out at least to the second notch to be able to sit without a magazine. Now, once you have a magazine in it, and here I do prefer the 25 round Lancers, you're able to use that first stage because the magazine picks it up. However, the magazine then becomes the monopod in the rear, essentially. Does have the potential with that magazine and all that weight resting on it to possibly induce a malfunction. Now, that being said, generally, the way I like to shoot it and the way most people are going to shoot it, you're going to have it up off the ground completely. The mag shouldn't be, the mag should not be touching. But if you have shorter arms, shorter body, whatever it may be, just realize that resting that mag on the ground could induce a malfunction with certain magazines. Getting back to the forward part of the rifle, if you will, couple things of note here. So installation, just like the factory handguard, we have a single pin here. We knock that pin out. We have our 2 tension screws on either side that actually hold to the MDRX chassis. We slide the OE handguard off, slide this in, and installation is reverse of removal. Something I do want to mention and something to take note of, this tension ring at the front here, and you can see this is for the Sandman L. This is the dead air compensator and chemo mount. Because of the tension ring on the front of this, if you do have a slightly larger muzzle device on your rifle, that is something that will interfere. You're going to end up having to take the muzzle device off to get the handguard on and off. So if you're somebody that likes to use the MDRX for what it was designed for and likes to change in between all of the calibers back and forth, be aware that this handguard will add a little bit more complexity to your barrel changes. Myself, I like the concept of the multi-caliber thing. I would probably purchase, a 5.56 223 version, and then this one is the 308 version, and just leave it. Changing barrels back and forth on these, while easy with the re-zeroing, cost of ammo, and everything else, tends to be a bit of a pain. So if you're gonna pick a caliber and stick with it, or you do very infrequent changes, the additional install time, probably not that big a deal. Something else I do want to point out here, and I'm going to flip this over. So, mounting a light on this, this is the Cloud Defensive Rain, fantastic light. What you run into though is, because you only have one M-LOK slot, you start to get into some limited mounting options. Cloud Defensive does offer a slight offset, basically a direct mount that sits right there over that M-LOK slot. But if you're using one that has any level of forward or rear offset to it, you run into either blocking off your gas adjustment if it's too far back and possibly bumping into the charging handle. If it's too far forward, you end up putting the lens of your illumination device right in the path of your blast coming out of your compensator or flash hider. Obviously, if you're running a suppressor, not that big a deal. but not everybody wants to spend the time and the tax stamp to get a hold of that. So that is something to consider if you are looking at purchasing this. Last thing I will bring up here in the studio before we head out to the range is the cost of this bad boy. So this handguard will set you back somewhere in the vicinity of 500 bucks. I have not seen a military discount floating around on these, or military and law enforcement for those of you in uniform that are watching this. But it's not cheap. That being said, when you look at the cost of, and I'll use an Atlas as an example, but even the bottom end Atlas will set you back to $225 plus a pick rail slot. You end up being $300, $350. Only advantage to that is you can move that from unit to unit, whereas obviously this is made specifically for the MDRX. So cost is another consideration, and just kind of something to think about there. Let's go out to the range. What we're looking for out there, obviously every bipod is going to have some level of flex to it, and you do want a little bit of flex, a little bit of give, but you don't want it to be so floppy that a freaking Viagra commercial pops up down below in the video. So that's what we're looking for there. We obviously want to see how steady it is. We want to see that the tension screw stays, keeps the tension steady, and obviously want to make sure it shoots well. So let's head out to the range. All right, so we are going to shoot some shots of this thing here. So at the range, nice thing is the legs do fold out very easily. Obviously nothing crazy there. Extension, so if we are shooting from a bench, just slides straight down as we covered on the tabletop. Let me zoom this out effectively here. So I'm gonna put a couple rounds down range with it. What I'm looking for is how stiff these legs are, and I want to make sure that they're not wiggling or moving or adjusting. Obviously on wood, you'll get a little bit of movement and a little bit of slide. When these are actually put in the dirt, they do have a decent amount of rubber grip. Might have been nice to have maybe a little spike on there or something. But does work very well. Once I got it about where I want my cant, I'm able to tighten it down from the knob. And let's put a couple rounds down range and see how it goes. Double loaded it there. All right. So once we get it up just on the bipod itself, I will say the platform is very, very stable. Absorbs recoil. Obviously we're going to get, like I said, we'll get a little bit of motion in there, but we don't want that to be excessive. Very easy to make follow-up shots. And we are empty bolt lock back. So on the range side of it, kind of final thoughts. It's definitely not cheap. These are in the $500+ range. There's people overcharging for them right now. But it does work very well. The only downside that I can see is, obviously I do have my my Cloud Defensive Rain mounted on here. On the sides, you only get one M-lock slot, as we covered on the tabletop. And without a suppressor on it, for the guys running the 16-inch barrels, if you are running a light, your options are either to run it really far back on a mount, or you're going to end up with some powder and some blowback from the whether it be the stock ratchet compensator, or obviously I've got the dead air one here for my Sandman. Outside of that,
I mean, it functions exactly like it should. It's a solid bipod. Everything moves very easily. The only thing I will say is with the can adjustment, if you leave it loose, when you go to fold the legs up, you kind of got to wiggle them a little bit. They don't just flip like a Caldwell, for example. And the light makes it a little bit more difficult. You still have plenty of room to get up in there, but you got to kind of slide your finger underneath that. If you had a little bit shallower mount, like the Cloud Defensive has a straight mount, it would be really hard to get to that leg lock, if you will. But overall, for the MDRX platform, especially in a 308, if you're trying to hunt with it, reach out just a little bit further. Going into this, I'll be the first one to admit I kind of wanted to hate it just for the price. But Black Label really did a good job with this. Desert Tech really did a good job with it. Kind of like I covered in the tabletop, really the only annoyance to it is if you did have to remove it to do a barrel change, you end up having to take just the handguard off. It's a tight fit, so you do have to remove your most muzzle devices, I've found. Not a huge deal, but kind of an annoyance, but much easier to get to the gas adjustment on it. I mean, like I said, overall, it's very well thought out. Is it worth the $500+? Yes and no. I do like the fact that it's all integrated, that you can use this as a standard handguard for just traditional style shooting. However, that being said, there are some less expensive options out there. So it kind of depends on your budget and how deep you want to go down the rabbit hole. Me personally, would I buy it again? Yes. Is it a great product? Yes. Is it for everybody? Probably not. With the MDRX, this is one of the long-term guns, so you will see this thing featured in a few more videos. So guys, I do appreciate your time watching this. As always, stay safe, train hard.